folks. Welcome into That Betting Show for June 18th, 2019. Your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs. He's Teddy Savranti. Give him a follow on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. I'm Donnie Seymour at Rightside VP. Major League Baseball is going to be the tale of the day today, but we are going to talk a little bit of football. First things first, Teddy, it's hot in Atlanta. Those bats are hot down there, and also a long home stretch by the Atlanta Braves really benefiting them, now sitting 3 games above the idle Philadelphia Phillies yesterday. If we take a look yesterday, Teddy, 12-3. On Sunday, 15 runs on Father's Day. Who's going to stop or cool off these bats, Teddy, down in Atlanta?
Oh, that's just the tip of the iceberg, 12 and 15. Before that, 5, 9, 6, 8, 7, 13, 7. That's 82 runs in their last 9 games. All overs. If you've been riding these over trains. We talk about how overs beget overs and unders beget unders. You have a hot lineup that is hot and is staying hot. Last night, an outburst in the 7th against the Mets bullpen. Atlanta looks very dangerous right now, and you've been betting the Braves and the over. You've done very well for yourself and your bankroll over the course of the last week and a half.
Yeah, Teddy, they'll get a nice little test tonight, though, because you're going to get DeGrom on the mound for the New York Mets. But again, it is a hitting environment. Those bats are hot. They still stack up well against DeGrom. Tehran's been no slouch lately, so we'll see if that over trend continues here on Tuesday night for baseball. But I'll tell you, a welcome sight for those Angels. Their bat's getting a little bit hot as well. Justin Upton comes back. What's he do, Teddy? As all these players seem to do in their first at-bat of the season, he goes yard. And how about this? Ed, you can't hide for so long, Teddy. Edwin Jackson has an opener in front of him. Ooh, maybe if the opener comes in, could give us 1 or 2 innings. Edwin Jackson give us 3 or 4. How about Edwin Jackson, Teddy, giving us 2/3 of an inning and 7 earned runs?
Yeah, Twitter finally noticed that Edwin Jackson was back in the majors last night. They went nuts. Obviously, we're talking about a pitcher who has no business starting games at the major league level anymore. Last night he didn't start. There was an opener. He came in the 2nd, and as you mentioned, didn't make it through the 2nd. He's allowed 6 runs or more in 5 of his last 6 starts. That's not good. He's allowed 41 runs, including 12 homers in just 25.1 innings over 7 outings this season. Batting average against .390. If you see Edwin Jackson on the hill again this season for Toronto in any way, shape, or form, you might want to think about betting against him.
Hey, Teddy, real quick question on this, because we see the Tampa Bay introduced us to the opener there. We know when Stanek's going to be on the mound or another few openers that they have. It's kind of interesting here because it looks like it's just starting this year. And you saw it yesterday. Law was announced as an opener shortly before the game started. Now, when I say shortly, it's not a half hour, 45 minutes. But a lot of times you'll see in the morning, oh, look, Edwin Jackson is the starter. A lot of people are placing their wagers, Teddy, because you see it on social media. And all of a sudden they say, wait a second, you come home and check your ticket. Well, Law was announced as the opener there, which voids out your ticket. It's kind of an interesting phenomenon here that we're seeing in the betting world.
Yeah, and again, I had an opportunity to talk with one of the major sportsbook directors in Las Vegas last week talking about this very issue, and he's like, we're trying to put action instead of listing starters. That being said, you can do that with a simple click. You know, all you need to do if you want to make your wager and have it survive through a pitching change, just click action, and it will do so. However, when you list pitchers and the pitchers change, it immediately becomes no action. So be aware, you can make the wager as action, but when there's no starter announced, as there was for a while in the Toronto game yesterday, they don't even have a number up on these games. So they're trying to make changes in the marketplace to reflect the new opener mentality, but these changes will take time. In the meantime, if you want to get involved, make sure you're not listing those starters.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, a lot of people, Teddy, make that bet maybe at their lunchtime at work and come home like, oh, man, look at that easy victory, and check their bank account, check their sports betting site and see that the game was actually voided out. Just something to keep in mind. Always looking to save people out there money, Teddy. It's what we do here on That Betting Show. Let's take a look and talk a little bit of football. It is June 18, 2019. We only have a few teams left before we get over to college football, but this is a good team we're going to preview today on That Betting Show. It's the Los Angeles Chargers preview. 15-1 to win the Super Bowl in 2019-20, 7-1 to win the AFC. The Chargers team total 9.5 -121. Tough division out there. Last year, Teddy, what more could you do? Obviously, you wanted to win a Super Bowl, but 12 wins to 4 losses, 4-2 overall in the AFC West. Same thing we're going to look at this year again. You're going to have some home field discrepancies for the Chargers, which really doesn't help them as much as other teams do. But also, you have Phillip Rivers back for another year. How's that arm going to hold up? You have a plethora of running backs here. I like the starter. I like the third down back. You have wide receivers. You have a solid offensive line. You have a great defensive coordinator and a great defense. Teddy, can they get over the hump this year for the Chargers? I like what they're bringing to the table this year. but do they have enough to get it done?
That's a good question. And of course, as you mentioned, they won 12 games last year, and then their reward for 12 games, for 12 wins, is back-to-back road games to open the playoffs at Baltimore, which they won, and then at New England the following week. So when you don't win the division title and you go on the road in the postseason, and that's what happens for a team like the LA Chargers, winning the division, obviously paramount for them. From a statistical standpoint, last year, they were elite, plus 0.9 yards per snap between what they gained on offense and what they allowed on defense. That's in the tied for number one in the NFL with Kansas City. They outrushed their opponents by 0.4 yards per rush. Phillip Rivers, a 105.5 QB rating, opposing QBs under 90. Huge differential there. And it wasn't all turnovers. They were only plus one in turnovers last year. It wasn't all schedule either. Their schedule slightly easier than average last year, but it's also slightly easier than average this year statistically. We're talking about very little, slightly easier, but it's basically an average schedule last year and one this year. So this is an organization that has a plan, which we haven't always been able to say for the Chargers. There's continuity here. The GM, Tom Telesco, I should say, hired in 2013. Anthony Lynn's been there since 2017. Ken Wisenhunt's been there. Gus Bradley's been there. Phillip Rivers has been there. The pieces are in place. And you look at what this team's done in the draft. Look at their last 4 first-rounders. Melvin Gordon, Joey Bosa, Mike Williams, Derwin James, all of whom have become very, very good NFL players. They've drafted well, and that's why this team is where they are. We talk about the offseason moves. The biggest deal was revamping their linebacking core. They made a big free agent splash, bringing in Thomas Davis, 14-year vet. Not sure how much he has left in the tank. They re-signed Denzel Perryman, and they had a couple of draft choices at the linebacker position. The draft was largely defense. Jerry Tillery, defensive tackle out of Notre Dame with the first-round pick. Adderley, the cornerback out of Delaware. He's an interesting choice round number 2. He may well be pressed into action early, and they're hoping that Trey Pipkins, the third-rounder out of Sioux Falls, is going to be able to help that offensive line right away. Worth noting for season win bettors, Chargers, who have one of the smaller home field edges in the NFL, they don't get a whole lot of crowd support, and their opponents do get a whole lot of crowd support from all the people that live in LA from around the country, and they took one home game, sent it to Mexico. So they only have 7 home games this year. Instead of their home revenge against Kansas City, they get, a game in Mexico City in November. So that costs them a home game and could be an issue when it comes to extra travel and all that type of thing for a Chargers team that does have an aging QB, although they did sign Tyrod Taylor to be his backup in 2019.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what the Chargers do this year. And the one thing I really like too, Teddy, is when you have a coaching staff, especially Gus Bradley, who's known defensive coordinator, very good and very smart, you love to see the things that he can do on the fly, like, get a game plan together like they did against the Baltimore Ravens, throw a ton of secondary people out there and really shut down the Ravens offense, a whole offseason to get ready, even more talent. One thing you need to do in this NFL is get good quarterback play, Teddy, and rush the passer well. Looks like they're going to be able to do it. An interesting team to keep your eye on here on that betting show coming up for the NFL season. Let's talk a little bit of line movements here, Teddy. SBRodds.com, best place on the internet to get those line movements. They're always changing. And an interesting one here, the Pirates line is now on the move. Checking out the SBRodds.com screen. Pittsburgh's going to have Keller. Detroit's going to have the lefty Norris on the mound. Opened up, Teddy, around 130, 132, depending on where you're shopping at. Now we're seeing that move into the 150s. The total, which was 8.5 earlier today, we're now seeing 9s pop up out there. Norris and Keller tonight for the Pirates and the Tigers.
Yeah, the markets want no part of Bud Norris at this stage of his career. He's got the dreaded trio. There's a low strikeout rate, only 7.1 strikeouts per 9. He has the high walk rate, and he has a high fly ball rate / low ground ball rate. And you put those 3 together, low strikeouts, high walks, low ground balls, guess what? The money's going to come against them. And, of course, the Tigers aren't exactly a team that's drawing a ton of market support anyway. Just 3-11 in their last 14 games. Worth noting for Keller, who's been ugly in his first 2 starts, but opponents have hit .472 against him in those 2 starts. One would expect something of a regression to the mean coming for Mr. Keller in his 3rd MLB outing.
Teddy, tonight Boston flips to a favor versus Minnesota. Nice pitching outing, a back-to-back nice pitching outings yesterday for the Boston Red Sox start. If we take a look, price moves to a -119, Teddy. Boston was getting +105, +106 around those markets at SBRodds.com. Now we're seeing the shift there, a total of 9.5. Can Boston keep those bats quiet like Porcello did last night and continue tonight? Price versus Pineda on the mound.
Yeah, the Red Sox, showing signs here in June. And of course, when we talk about David Price taking money, his strikeout rate's still there, more than 10 strikeouts per nine. His BABIP, batting average on balls in play, the BABIP is well over 300. So the market is expecting that to get better for Price. But more than anything, this is against Pineda. They've been betting against Pineda regularly. His strikeout rate is way down. His ground ball rate is way down. And I know that he's allowed 3 runs or fewer, or he had allowed 3 runs or fewer in 6 straight starts prior to his last outing when he got, not so hot. But it's also worth noting Minnesota on a 2-game losing streak. The Twins haven't lost 3 in a row all year.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting game to take a look at. How about this one, Teddy? Last night, if you're taking a look at those Dodgers, thinking, oh, man, what an easy one we have lined up with Beatty. Well, kid pitched pretty well on the mound. Kenta Maeda goes down 3-2 loss. Now you're going to come back today, another heavy favorite. And L.A., Teddy, opened up around minus 270 at SBRodds.com, and now it's been down to around 225, 230, depending on where you're shopping, at a total of 7.5. It's Anderson versus Kershaw. Teddy, something you talked about earlier. Something's up here with these Dodgers bats, man. We're smoking hot for a long time. Now coming back down to that median there.
Yeah, a little bit for sure. And there are definite concerns about Kershaw today, hence some of the San Francisco money. There's Kershaw's last outing against the Cubs. Quote, this is from Dave Roberts, the Dodgers manager. It was a little bit of a grind. I appreciate the way he continued to find that curveball, but just couldn't get the feel for it. But like he seems to do many times over, it's just make pitches when he needs to. Kershaw, survived through that game. He doesn't have the velocity that he had a few years back. Yes, he's gone at least 6 innings in every start this season, but, Giants bullpen's been solid. And as we talked about, San Fran and the youngster Anderson getting the start today for the Giants. 2-1, 3.97 ERA. He's just his 7th career start, but he's been good over the course of the month of June. And last time out against the Padres, 2 runs, 4 hits, 6 innings, 6 strikeouts. Giants won that game. San Fran playing better ball, and the market's respecting that with the current line move against the Dodgers.
Let's get a little bit of TV action here on Watch What You Bet here on That Betting Show, Teddy. Reds look for 2 in a row over Houston. You had Miley on the mound yesterday, and Castillo. Castillo pitched very well once again, a 3-2 victory by the Reds. Now they're going to do it again tonight. A little bit of a level up in competition from Miley to Verlander, as you see with the odds that we're currently sitting here. Opened up around 170, 175, still staying in that range. Over under, Teddy, opens up at 8. Now we're seeing a little bit of increase in that, up to 8.5. The Astros are 48-25 on the season. The Reds 32-38. Verlander versus DeSclafani tonight.
Yeah, and the Reds, coming off a nice win yesterday, they're saying the right things about facing Verlander today. Nick Senzel, their center fielder, quote, "It was helpful that we got to face Scherzer a couple of weeks ago. That's a legend in the sport. And the same for Verlander. You just want to compete. And when you face guys like that, you want your game to elevate to that level. I'm sure we're going to do that. We need to start getting rolling before the first half of the season's over. We need to get on a little run. We're capable of doing that." I believe that for this Red squad. And Verlander, again, back-to-back no decisions, 22 strikeouts and no walks, over 13.1 innings of work in those last 2 starts. But we're talking about a pitcher, again, the advanced metrics on Verlander, a little bit dicey. They say he's supposed to regress. He's given up 17 homers already this season. And it's an Astros squad that all of a sudden, 2 straight losses. They're slumping. Houston's last 3-game losing streak ended on April 22nd.
Another game here for us tonight, Teddy. Brewers and the Padres. We joked about it yesterday. Did they leave all their runs in Colorado? No. They saved 2 for last night's game, Teddy, and 2 was just enough for us to get that W there. So we'll take a look at it again tonight, the Brewers and the Padres. Didn't have any lines up early, but now we're seeing some stuff come through on SBRodds.com. Woodruff versus the lefty Allen. Keep in mind, Logan Allen's going to make his major league debut tonight, and it looks like the markets don't really agree with that move, Teddy. Opened up at 146, 150, now sitting as high as 165. If we take a look at the over-unders, sort of sinking a little bit. Some offshore markets, Teddy, opened up at 8.5, now sitting at 7.5, and in that 8 range. Brewers are 40-32 on the season. The Padres 36-37. Woodruff versus Allen tonight.
Yeah, and the market's high on Woodruff. I don't blame them. They're 12-2 when he starts this season, including 9-0 his last 9. 96 strikeouts and 81 innings this season, allowing just 1.15 WHIP. Opponents hitting just 235 against him. His sinker ball has been nasty. 8th in the NL in strikeouts, averaging 10.6 per 9 innings, a 4.2 strikeout to walk ratio. He's got some really good numbers. And, of course, the Padres bats, cooled off last night, scoring the 2. Of course, that was 2 more than Milwaukee scored last night, but the markets are expecting the Brewers bats to get going here against Logan Allen. Remember, it's one thing if you bring up your top prospect or even your number 2 or your number 3. This is the 5th different rookie starter that the Padres have had to call up this year. All right, he's not their first choice. He has a 5.15 ERA in 13 starts at AAA. The quote from Padres manager Andy Green, quote, "We don't necessarily stare at the stat line in El Paso anymore, whether it's the pitchers or the hitters. We look at the whole body of work, and we feel like the secondary info is where it needs to be for Logan to be successful here. We like the 4-pitch mix he brings. We feel over the last few starts he's trended in the right direction. Obviously, we're in a place of need right now. We need someone to step up big to help us. He's a guy we've been paying attention to for a long time. I don't trust him. I understand the Milwaukee money might be a run line spot for the Brewers."
Teddy, it's interesting you bring that up there. I want you to take just a few moments here to take a look and say, you know what, because the point you brought up is a lot of people look and say, all right, the prospect is coming up. How do you approach whether an A, a top prospect, B, an average prospect, or even a first guy getting his look in Major League Baseball? Because it does happen quite frequently, and it's one of those things where if you're a novice handicapper, or even a professional handicapper, you don't really get a good feel on how this pitcher's going to do, how long he's going to go. Can you just spend maybe, a minute or 30 seconds here talking about how you approach that type of situation when you have that new pitcher making his debut on the mound?
Sure. And some guys spend a lot of time and grade out all the pitchers in spring training. I usually don't have time to do that because I'm working NBA and March Madness. So what I do when a new pitcher comes up that I'm not familiar with is you Google them, prospect rankings, and you see where was this guy last year? Where was this guy prior to the season? And all of a sudden you see a guy, hey, he was their 38th prospect and all of a sudden he's getting a call up. That's not a good thing. And again, you go through the list. Oh, this guy got called up already. Oh, he didn't pan out. This guy got called up, but he got hurt. This guy got called up, and he's still there. Oh, and now they're calling up this guy. And you can see as the prospects ahead or behind him. And again, Google, powerful tool for for many of your sports betting needs.
Yep, absolutely. They're also another interesting one here, Teddy. I do use sometimes with some of these guys that get brought up. You actually can go to YouTube and see some of these guys' full games or actual highlights in AAA or AA. Sometimes you see a lefty with a weird motion that might not be able to catch up for the first 2 times around, or a kid that throws extremely hard. You can get a lot of things by using Google. You're right. So use that all to your advantage here, only in the long term, designed to get you more money. Teddy, Texas looking for back-to-back wins over the Tribe. We saw a game yesterday where Clevenger was sensational to start the season. Comes back yesterday, 7-2 win for the Texas Rangers. They're going to get it going again tonight. Rangers favored getting plus 115 tonight with a total of 10.5. Plesac versus Sampson tonight.
Look, the Rangers are 25-12 at home. All right, they haven't been priced that way. I'm putting that mildly. If they win tonight, they're going to go 7 games above 500 for the first time all season. They've been 6 games as high as 6 games above. Yesterday they scored all 7 of their runs with 2 outs. This is a team that's feeling good about themselves, that's getting clutch hits, that's getting clutch outs, and they're overachieving at home day in, day out. They're dogs again today. Look, Adrian Sampson was good. He had a 5-start winning streak and the game snapped. He got beat up by Boston last time. I'll give him 4 dingers. That being said, he's been real, like Texas, he's been real good at home. 4-1, 2.70 ERA, 5 starts, 3 relief appearances. Now, look, Plesac's obviously been pretty good this season. He had a bad outing last time against Cincinnati. He's given up 5 home runs in 4 starts. This is his first start in Arlington. That concerns me here. Right now, again, Texas is hitting. They're clutch hitting. I know their bullpen's not the Indians, and if it comes down to a bullpen, Texas is going to be at a bullpen game. The Rangers are legitimately at a disadvantage, but there aren't many other disadvantages they have in this game. I think they're live dogs tonight.
Yep, Major League Baseball carrying the day here in that betting field. Look, me and Teddy started going strong in early January, building up all the way through. In just a few weeks, we're going to take a little bit of time off before we refocus on the fall and all that has to offer. But before we get out of here today, Teddy, off the mic section, just when you thought the NBA was winding down, there wasn't a lot of news hits out there, dun, dun, dun. LeVar Ball appears back on the screen. They're back front and center. The kid's going to play in Australia, Teddy. What is this? His 19th different place in the last 3 or 4 years that he's played basketball. Currently listed as 33rd in the latest mock draft for 2020. Now, they said keep in mind, they're not really sure how to rank him because they haven't seen him against like opponents where you're in high school or you're in college, what that would be. So that number could move up higher. But nevertheless, kid's been a lot of places, a world traveler, only 17 years old. He's 6'7". But here we go again. Big baller brand is back, Eddie.
Yeah, and it's almost too easy to make fun of the Ball family. So I won't. What I'm going to talk about here, it's low-hanging fruit, man. It's just too easy. They make fun of themselves for me. At least the dad does. The kids are just trying to play ball. But the bigger issue here is now we're really starting. First it was one kid, and then it was two. This year, we're seeing a good handful of players say, NCAA, screw you guys. We're going elsewhere. Here we're seeing Australia, China, Japan, Israel, Italy, all over the world. People are playing basketball, and the NCAA, they might have to compete with them more than they have been. You have a choice between dealing with NCAA restrictions and regulations and getting paid overseas. More and more kids choosing to get paid overseas. That's not good news for college basketball.
No, it certainly isn't. We'll see the balls push the envelope because the more the times the kids do this and it is successful, more are probably going to look in that direction. That's it for That Betting Show today for June 18th, 2019. Your one-stop shop for all your sports betting needs, designed to get you out in and out in 20 minutes or less. He's Teddy Savransky. Once again, give him a follow on Twitter at Teddy_Covers. I'm Donnie Seymour, right side VP. We will be back tomorrow to go over that Major League Baseball card, preview another NFL team. Good luck tonight. Cash those tickets, and we'll see you tomorrow.